From steroid confessions to accidental prophecies about team relocations, the making of Major League was almost as bizarre as the ragtag team it portrayed. Behind the classic baseball comedy lie secret deleted endings, real MLB players creating voodoo shrines, and a director who had no idea he'd hired one of baseball's most iconic broadcasters. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Major League. Fact 1. Charlie Sheen took actual steroids. When Charlie Sheen signed on to play Ricky Wild Thing Vaughn in Major League, he faced a significant challenge. The script called for him to convincingly portray a hard-throwing pitcher with a 98-mile-per-hour fastball, but Sheen's real pitching velocity was nowhere near that level. So the actor decided to take a controversial shortcut that he wouldn't reveal until more than 20 years after the film's release. In a 2011 interview with Sports Illustrated, Sheen openly admitted that he used performance-enhancing drugs during filming. He took steroids for approximately 6 to 8 weeks while preparing for and shooting the movie. And according to Sheen, the results were dramatic. His fastball velocity increased from 79 miles per hour to around 85 miles per hour, giving his on-screen pitching scenes much more authenticity. But the physical improvements came with unexpected side effects. Sheen revealed that the steroids made him noticeably more irritable and aggressive than usual, which is saying something given his already volatile personality. The anger issues became particularly problematic when combined with another aspect of his role. Sheen's character sported a distinctive haircut featuring lightning bolts shaved into the sides, and this unusual hairstyle generated constant mockery from strangers in Milwaukee bars during the shoot. The combination of steroid-fueled rage and relentless teasing about his haircut created what Sheen called a recipe for disaster, nearly leading to multiple physical altercations. Looking back on the experience, Sheen showed no remorse about his decision, telling the magazine he didn't care if they printed the confession. He claimed this was the only time in his life he ever used steroids, making it a unique experiment specifically for the authenticity of his baseball movie performance. Fact 2. The villain was originally the hero. Major League originally featured a twist ending that would have completely changed how audiences viewed the film's antagonist, but test screenings revealed that moviegoers wanted nothing to do with redemption for the villainous owner. In the original version of the script, Rachel Phelps was not actually the heartless saboteur she appeared to be throughout the movie. Director and writer David S. Ward included a scene that took place right before the climactic playoff game, where manager Lou Brown confronts Phelps about her scheme to destroy the team. Instead of gloating about her evil plan, Phelps reveals a shocking truth. She confesses that she wanted the team to win all along and had secretly orchestrated everything to motivate them to success. According to this deleted scene, Phelps had personally scouted every single player on the roster except Willie Mays Hayes, who she called a surprise. She deliberately chose athletes with obvious flaws that concealed their real talent, knowing she could only afford players who appeared washed up or problematic. Phelps then admits she specifically hired Lou Brown because she believed he had the skills to straighten out these troubled players and turn them into winners. The team was actually broke, and her villainous persona was just an act to inspire the players to prove her wrong. However, when test audiences watched this version, they absolutely hated giving Phelps a heart. Viewers had spent the entire movie despising this character, and they found the redemption twist completely unsatisfying. The negative reaction forced Ward and the producers to make significant changes. They cut the redemption scene entirely and filmed new reaction shots showing Phelps angry and disappointed about the team's success, cementing her status as one of sports cinema's most memorable villains instead of a misunderstood genius. Fact 3. Wesley Snipes turned down. Spike Lee. Wesley Snipes made a career-defining choice when he turned down legendary director Spike Lee to appear in a baseball comedy instead, a decision that might have seemed questionable at the time, but ultimately launched him to stardom. In 1987, Snipes appeared in the extended version of Michael Jackson's music video for the song Bad, which was directed by Martin Scorsese. In the video, Snipes played a rival gang leader opposite Jackson, and though he only appeared in the longer cut that many viewers never saw, one very important person noticed his performance. Spike Lee was so impressed by Snipes' dynamic presence and natural charisma in the music video that he offered the young actor a role in his upcoming film, Do the Right Thing. At the time, Lee was an ascending force in American cinema, and being cast in one of his movies represented a significant opportunity for any performer, especially an African-American actor looking to break into Hollywood. However, Snipes made the surprising decision to decline Lee's offer. He chose instead to take a much larger role in Major League, playing the fast-talking, base-stealing center fielder Willie Mays Hayes. While the part in Do the Right Thing would have been smaller and in a more prestigious dramatic film, Snipes recognized that the Major League role gave him substantially more screen time and a chance to showcase his personality and athletic abilities. The gamble paid off spectacularly. Major League became a box office hit, and Snipes' charismatic performance as Hayes helped establish him as a rising star. Spike Lee didn't hold a grudge about the rejection. He later cast Snipes in Mo Better Blues in 1990 and gave him the lead role in Jungle Fever in 1991, helping to solidify Snipes' status as one of the most versatile and bankable actors of the decade. Fact 4. Wesley Snipes' running was slowed down. Willie May. So Hayes is supposed to be the fastest player on the Cleveland Indians roster, a base-stealing speedster whose legs are his greatest weapon, even though he can barely hit the ball. But there was one significant problem with this characterization. Wesley Snipes, despite his athletic build and natural charisma, was not actually fast enough to convincingly portray a player with world-class speed. The filmmakers needed Hayes to look like he had blazing quickness on the base paths, the kind of speed that strikes fear into opposing pitchers and catchers. So the production team came up with a creative solution to make Snipes appear much faster than he really was. They filmed all of Willie Mays Hayes' running scenes in slow motion, a trick that might seem counterintuitive at first. When you slow down footage of someone running, the playback actually creates an illusion of greater speed because the motion becomes more fluid and dynamic. The technique also allowed the editors to manipulate the footage during post-production, adjusting the playback speed to find the perfect balance between realistic human motion and superhuman velocity. This meant that whenever you see Hayes stealing bases, running down fly balls in center field, or sprinting around the bases, you're watching carefully crafted movie magic rather than genuine athletic prowess. The slow-motion filming technique proved so effective that audiences completely bought into Hayes as an elite speedster, never questioning whether Snipes could actually run that fast in real life. It's a testament to the skill of the cinematographer and editors that this movie trick remains largely unknown even decades after the film's release, with most viewers simply accepting that Snipes was fast enough to play the role convincingly without any special camera techniques required. Fact 5. Cleveland film shot entirely. In Milwaukee. Despite being one of the most beloved tributes to Cleveland sports in cinema history, Major League was filmed almost entirely in a different city over 200 miles away. The production shot most of its baseball scenes at Milwaukee County Stadium in Wisconsin, which stood in for Cleveland Stadium throughout the movie. This wasn't the filmmaker's first choice. Director David S. Ward grew up in Cleveland and desperately wanted to film in his hometown, making the movie as authentic as possible for the long-suffering Indians fans he hoped would embrace the film. However, practical realities made shooting in Cleveland nearly impossible. The main problem was scheduling conflicts with not just one, but two professional sports teams. Municipal Stadium in Cleveland was home to both the Indians baseball team and the Cleveland Browns football team, and by the time Major League started production in the summer of 1988, the Browns had already begun their preseason activities. This meant the football team had already painted yard lines across the baseball field, which would have looked terrible in a movie supposedly taking place during baseball season. Beyond the aesthetic issues, Ward also discovered that filming in Cleveland would be significantly more expensive due to union requirements and labor costs. Milwaukee offered a much more affordable alternative with a willing workforce and a stadium that was available to work around the Brewers' schedule. The switch to Milwaukee meant that die-hard Cleveland fans can spot numerous anachronisms throughout the film if they look closely enough. The television station sign visible atop the scoreboard displays call letters for WTMJ, which is Milwaukee's NBC affiliate rather than a Cleveland station. Several other Milwaukee locations appear in the movie as well, including restaurants and apartment buildings that locals would immediately recognize as being nowhere near Cleveland. Fact 6. Director didn't know Wicker was a broadcaster. When director David S. Ward set out to cast the role of Harry Doyle, the sardonic radio announcer for the Cleveland Indians, he had a very specific type of performer in mind. He wanted someone funny, someone with impeccable comedic timing who could deliver witty one-liners about terrible baseball with a perfect deadpan delivery. Ward had seen Bob Uecker in a series of hilarious Miller Lite beer commercials where Uecker played up his status as a mediocre former player with brilliant self-deprecating humor. Ward was also familiar with Uecker's work as George Owens on the sitcom Mr. Belvedere, which had been on the air since 1985. Based purely on these acting credentials, Ward decided Uecker was perfect for the part and offered him the role. It wasn't until Ward actually met with Uecker in person that he discovered something that would have made the casting decision even easier if he had known it beforehand. Bob Uecker had been the radio play-by-play announcer for the Milwaukee Brewers for nearly 20 years by the time Major League went into production. Ward had somehow completely missed this fact, despite Wiskear being one of the most recognizable voices in baseball broadcasting. Uecker had started calling Brewers games in 1971 and had become beloved by fans for the exact same quick wit and humorous commentary that Ward had noticed in the commercials and television show. The discovery that Ward had accidentally cast an actual longtime baseball broadcaster to play a fictional baseball broadcaster is one of the most serendipitous pieces of casting in sports movie history. Uecker's genuine experience in the broadcast booth added layers of authenticity to his performance that no amount of acting coaching could have provided, and his improvised lines became some of the most quotable moments in the entire film. Fact 7. Real Indians created Jobu shrines. The influence of Major League extended far beyond entertainment and actually inspired real Cleveland Indians players to adopt the fictional voodoo practices depicted in the movie. In 2016, more than 25 years after the film's release, Indians second baseman Jason Kipnis and first baseman Mike Napoli constructed an elaborate shrine to Jobu in an empty locker between their stalls in the team's clubhouse at Progressive Field. The shrine featured 2 Jobu figurines, small bottles of Bacardi rum placed between the statues, and a sweater displaying Jobu's image along with the warning that it is very bad to drink Jobu's rum. Napoli received one of the Jobu statues and the sweater as a gift from his agent during spring training, and Kipnis later added a second statue to complete the display. The players treated the shrine with surprising seriousness, making regular offerings to the voodoo deity, just like Pedro Serrano did in the movie. However, they discovered through trial and error that Jobu had particular preferences about his alcohol. According to Kipnis, they initially left airport vodka as an offering, but Jobu apparently didn't appreciate the cheap liquor because the team's performance didn't improve. They switched to Bacardi rum, matching what Serrano used in the film, and suddenly, things started working. The shrine became so important to the team that other players began participating in the ritual. The superstition reached its peak in July of 2016 when the team held an elaborate sacrificial ceremony for struggling catcher Yan Gomez. Napoli led the ceremony, which included sacrificing a chicken purchased from Target and offering various gifts to both Jobu and the baseball gods. The entire event was filmed and posted on social media, showing just how seriously professional athletes were taking inspiration from a fictional character's voodoo practices. Fact 8. The film invented modern closer entrance songs. Before Major League came out in 1989, entrance music for relief pitchers existed, but was far from the universal tradition it would become. The film's iconic scene of Ricky Vaughn emerging from the bullpen to the pounding sounds of Wild Thing by the Band X fundamentally changed baseball culture and established one of the sport's most enduring modern traditions. While organists had played personalized music for players since at least the 1970s, and closers like Sparky Lyle had entrance themes in the early 70s, the theatrical presentation in Major League popularized the concept on a massive scale. The movie showed how entrance music could transform a pitcher's arrival into an event that energizes both the home crowd and the player himself. Within months of the film's release, real-life pitchers began copying what they had seen on screen. Cubs pitcher Mitch Williams became the first and most obvious imitator. Williams already had an unorthodox delivery and struggled with control issues, earning him comparisons to the fictional Wild Thing even before he consciously embraced the persona. Shortly after Major League premiered, Williams began using the same Wild Thing song as his entrance music at Wrigley Field. He didn't stop there. Williams changed his jersey number from 28 to 99, the same number Rick Vaughn wore in the movie, and fully committed to the Wild Thing identity. Charlie Sheen was reportedly furious about Williams adopting his character's signature elements without giving him credit, feeling that the pitcher had stolen his thunder. But Williams's success with the gimmick inspired pitchers across baseball to think more carefully about their entrance presentations. By the mid-90s, virtually every closer in Major League Baseball had selected their own entrance song, turning what had once been a novelty into an expected part of the game's theater. Fact 9. Rene Russo's hands were tied down. Rene Russo was 35 years old and making her feature film debut when she was cast as Lynn Wells, the former Olympic swimmer turned librarian who becomes the romantic interest of aging catcher Jake Taylor. Russo had spent her 20s as a successful fashion model, appearing on the covers of Vogue and Cosmopolitan, but she had never tackled a major film role before Major League gave her the opportunity. The inexperienced actress brought natural charisma and believability to the part, but she also brought one distinctive trait that director David S. Ward found problematic for the camera. Russo is Italian-American, and as Ward diplomatically explained decades later, she tends to talk very expressively with her hands when she gets animated during a performance. This habit, which is common among people of Italian heritage and can add wonderful energy to live performances, created serious technical problems during filming. When Russo would deliver her lines with emotional intensity, her hands would fly wildly through the air, often crossing directly in front of her face and obscuring her expressions from the camera. For actors, facial expressions are crucial for conveying emotion, and having hands constantly moving through the frame disrupts the audience's ability to connect with the character. Ward and the crew came up with an unusual solution to manage Russo's expressive hand gestures. During certain scenes, particularly the library scene that was shot in one long take without any cuts, they physically restricted her hand movements to keep them under control. Ward didn't specify exactly how they restrained her hands, whether they asked her to hold props, keep her hands on a desk, or literally tied them down in some fashion, but the intervention was necessary to capture usable footage. Despite these behind-the-scenes challenges, Russo delivered a memorable performance that helped launch her successful film career. Fact 10, 10,000 real extras showed up. The climactic playoff game sequence in Major League required massive crowd scenes that would convincingly portray the excitement of Cleveland finally making the postseason after decades of futility. Rather than using empty stadium shots or visual effects, director David S. Ward decided to film with real crowds at Milwaukee County Stadium, and the response from local residents exceeded everyone's expectations. The production posted notices around Milwaukee at universities, coffee shops, and other public spaces, recruiting extras to appear as baseball fans in the movie. Ward hoped to get a decent turnout, but he had no idea just how enthusiastic Milwaukeeans would be about participating in a Hollywood production. For the biggest crowd scenes during the playoff game, an astounding 27,000 people showed up to pack the stadium. Even on nights when the required shots didn't need quite as many people, they still had over 20,000 extras filling the seats. The dedication of these volunteers was remarkable, considering the brutal conditions they endured. The summer of 1988 was one of the hottest in Milwaukee's history, with temperatures exceeding 100 degrees on 6 different days. The production required night shooting for 6 consecutive weeks to work around the Milwaukee Brewers' actual game schedule, which meant extras had to stay up all night sitting in a stadium under hot lights. Despite the heat and the late hours, a core group of approximately 200 to 300 extras showed up every single night of filming, becoming familiar faces to both the cast and crew. Ward taught this devoted crowd how to sing Wild Thing in unison, and their enthusiasm was genuine rather than manufactured. Some extras even took initiative beyond what was scripted, including several young women who spontaneously started dancing on top of the dugout during the celebration scenes, a moment that made it into the final film. Fact 11. The film predicted Miami baseball. One of the strangest coincidences surrounding Major League Baseball involves the fictional relocation plan that drives the entire plot and how eerily it foreshadowed actual Major League Baseball expansion decisions. In the movie, villainous owner Rachel Phelps wants to move the Cleveland Indians to Miami, Florida, believing the warm weather city would be more profitable and glamorous than cold, depressed Cleveland. This was purely a creative choice by screenwriter David S. Ward, who needed a sunny destination that would contrast dramatically with Cleveland's industrial grayness. The film was released in April of 1989, introducing audiences to the idea of Miami as a potential baseball city. Just 2 years later, in 1991, Major League Baseball announced that Miami would indeed receive an expansion franchise. The Florida Marlins began playing in 1993, making the movie's premise suddenly seem like prophecy rather than fiction. The timing was so close that some people wondered if the film had actually influenced baseball executives' thinking about Miami's viability as a baseball market. Interestingly, Major League wasn't the only 1989 film to predict Miami baseball. Back to the Future Part 2, released in November of that same year, also featured a fictional Miami baseball team in its vision of the year 2015. This double prediction of Miami baseball from 2 different movies released months apart in 1989 makes the eventual reality of the Marlins even more bizarre. The real-life Marlins added another layer of irony to Major League's story. In 1997, just 8 years after the movie came out, the Marlins defeated the Cleveland Indians in the World Series, a matchup that felt like the movie's plot coming to life in the cruelest possible way for long-suffering Cleveland fans. Fact 12. Dennis Haysbert was emotionally overwhelmed. Dennis Haysbert, who played the voodoo practicing slugger Pedro Serrano, experienced a moment during filming that gave him genuine insight into what professional baseball players feel during high-stakes games. The scene in question was the climactic playoff game where the Indians finally make it to the postseason after decades of failure. For this sequence, director David S. Ward had recruited over 20,000 real extras to pack Milwaukee County Stadium and create an authentic atmosphere. When Haysbert and his castmates ran onto the field for the first time with this massive crowd roaring and cheering, the emotional impact was far more powerful than he had anticipated. Haysbert later admitted that he was genuinely overwhelmed by the experience of hearing thousands of people screaming with excitement as he emerged from the dugout. The noise, the energy, and the sheer scale of the crowd's enthusiasm created a rush of feelings that surprised him, despite knowing it was just a movie and these weren't real fans celebrating an actual playoff berth. Standing on that field with the sound of 20,000 voices washing over him, Haysbert felt a connection to what professional athletes must experience during the biggest moments of their careers. Former Major League Baseball player Steve Yeager, who served as the film's technical advisor and also played the role of third base coach Duke Temple in the movie, noticed Haysbert's emotional reaction to the crowd. Yeager, who had played in the World Series and experienced countless high-pressure moments during his career as a catcher, approached Haysbert and offered a bit of perspective that put the moment into context. He told Haysbert that what he was feeling right then, that overwhelming rush of adrenaline and emotion from the roaring crowd, was exactly what it's like for real baseball players 162 times every single year throughout a full season. Fact 13. Jeremy Piven's scenes were cut. Entirely long before Jeremy Piven became famous for playing the aggressive Hollywood agent Ari Gold on the television series Entourage, he was a young actor trying to make his mark in the film industry. In 1988, Piven landed what seemed like a promising role in Major League, playing a character described as an insulting heckler or bench jockey who would appear throughout the movie. The role was designed to add an extra layer of comedy to various baseball scenes, with Piven's character hurling creative insults at players from the stands or perhaps from the opposing team's dugout. Piven filmed multiple scenes for the movie, appearing at various points during the baseball sequences with his characteristic motor-mouthed energy and sharp comedic timing. However, when director David S. Ward reviewed the footage and began assembling the film in the editing room, he made a difficult decision. Despite Piven's efforts and the time spent filming his scenes, Ward determined that the material simply didn't work within the context of the movie. The characters' appearances disrupted the flow of the story rather than enhancing it, and the insults and heckling that seemed funny in theory didn't land properly when integrated into the actual baseball sequences. Ward cut every single one of Piven's scenes from the theatrical release, meaning the actor's work never made it to the screen. This type of editing decision is fairly common in filmmaking, where entire performances or subplots get removed during post-production when directors realize they don't serve the story effectively. For Piven, having his entire role deleted from what became a beloved sports comedy must have been disappointing, but it certainly didn't damage his career in the long run. He went on to achieve far greater success in later projects, though Major League remains a curious footnote as a film where he worked but never appeared. Fact 14. TV version changed a urination scene. When Major League premiered in theaters in April of 1989, it carried an R rating, allowing the filmmakers to include adult language and crude humor that would appeal to their target audience. One particularly memorable scene showcased manager Lou Brown's no-nonsense approach to dealing with entitled players. Third baseman Roger Dorn, played by Corbin Burnson, challenges Brown during spring training by complaining about the harsh physical conditioning requirements. In the theatrical version, Brown responds to Dorn's whining by taking the player's contract and urinating directly onto it, a shocking and vulgar display of dominance that makes it absolutely clear who is in charge of the team. The scene perfectly captured Brown's rough, old-school mentality and willingness to humiliate players who thought they were too important to follow his rules. However, this type of crude humor couldn't survive when Major League was edited for broadcast on network television. Television standards required removing or modifying any content involving bodily functions, profanity, or explicit sexual material before the film could air during family viewing hours. The urination scene obviously fell into the category of content that needed to be changed. Rather than simply cutting the entire scene and potentially disrupting the narrative flow, the editors created an alternate version specifically for television broadcasts. In this sanitized edit, Lou Brown still takes Roger Dorn's contract in his hands after the player's complaint, but instead of urinating on it, Brown merely blows his nose into the document. While still disrespectful and somewhat gross, blowing one's nose is considerably less offensive than urination and was deemed acceptable for television audiences. The modification preserved the basic structure and intent of the scene while making it suitable for broadcast standards. Fact 15. The opening predicted the team. Name change. The opening sequence of Major League features a montage of Cleveland imagery set to Randy Newman's song, Burn On, establishing the city's working-class character and the Indians' long history of disappointment. Among these opening shots is a close-up of one of the Art Deco sculptures that stand on the Hope Memorial Bridge, which was known at the time as the Lorraine Carnegie Bridge. These sculptures, called the Guardians of Traffic, were installed in 1932 and depict massive stone figures holding vehicles, symbolizing the progress of transportation. Director David S. Ward, who grew up in Cleveland, included this shot as a way of showcasing recognizable local landmarks and adding authentic Cleveland flavor to his film. At the time of the movie's release in 1989, no one could have predicted the symbolic significance this brief image would eventually hold. Throughout Major League's runtime, the Cleveland team is referred to as the Indians hundreds of times, and the controversial Chief Wahoo logo appears repeatedly on uniforms and merchandise. This remained the team's identity for more than 3 decades after the film came out. However, growing awareness about the offensive nature of Native American mascots and team names led to increasing pressure on the Cleveland franchise to make changes. In 2021, the team officially announced they were abandoning the Indians name that they had used since 1915. The new name they chose was the Cleveland Guardians, directly inspired by and named after those same Art Deco Guardian sculptures that Ward had featured in the opening of Major League 32 years earlier. The fact that the film's opening image became the source of the team's new identity creates an eerie sense that Major League somehow predicted this change decades before it happened.